The
It's funny
technology
to
aspect.
Hey everyone, this is Erik with the Awake Experience, and I'm here live with Taylor Short. And Taylor and I are having a retreat come up together. It's a deep dive, and it's Sunday, May 15th, and it's in beautiful Evergreen, Colorado. That's where I live, right up here. If I could show you outside my window, it's a beautiful blue sky day, and we have a cabin in the woods where we practice all day long. So it's going to be another great retreat. We do them every month. And Taylor, welcome. I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm so excited to be here. And like Erik said, we're streaming in two places, so we'll kind of be looking at both screens. Yes, but I'm so excited. I'm so looking forward to being at that magical place in Evergreen.
Yeah. So what's been most alive for you lately, Taylor?
Oh, yeah.
What are you most lit up about? I love that question. Someone asked me that once, and I think it's such a good question.
Yes, it's funny you asked this because there's been a lot that's been alive, I think probably for a lot of us. But for me, I'm finding this interesting dance, being an entrepreneur, of you'll probably appreciate this as well, of having this dance of being a business owner and amazing in my career, and then also being aligned within myself, connected to my heart space, connected to kind of the bigger picture. And I'm really finding this interesting shift for me personally. I don't know if it's the time of my life or whatever, but I used to be like, go, 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 go. And now I just don't want that. Oh, okay. Yeah. So now I'm shifting from like, I can go, but I don't want to anymore. So that's kind of what's alive for me, is playing with that space of both.
Yeah, that's funny. My friends called me Go Vienneau in high school, and now I know why, because I've been doing a lot of inner work, and I'm like, hey, they were right.
Oh, really?
And we just got our T-shirts for Awake Festival ordered, and one of the designs is don't just sit there, don't just do something, sit there. Because it's so tempting to just go and do all the time. And it's actually sometimes harder to just sit there, come back to center, and then see what source has for us next.
Yes.
So that's a good way to live. And I should mention that the name of the workshop that we're presenting together at the deep dive, May 15th, is partnering with nature to bring your big vision into tangible reality. And I don't know about you, but so some coaches will set goals, right? Which is great.
Yeah.
But in the past, when I've done some coaching work, there wasn't a lot of that internal work where you would get present and really listen and tune in, so you kind of know what's next to keep you on a path of wisdom towards where you're headed. So you're always in alignment, because we can always set goals and work towards them. But to me, it feels like soul alignment. And I wonder, Taylor, is that important in your work too? I'm sure it is. I know you.
Yeah, totally. But I think it's so important to bring in, because there's so many different ways of support and coaching. And really, like as coaches, we don't have the answers for our clients. Like we can help guide, but really that's my goal, is to help people really come back to themselves and I always, go to themselves, like their internal self, so that you can kind of quiet that noise, that busyness that we're talking about, so that you can find what's the true answer. Because what I've been noticing for years now is we're just pulled like silly putty in different directions of life. We're always connected to technology. We're always reading another book, learning another practice, and that's all said and good. But if you don't check in with you and have that time to kind of sit, that you mentioned before, and check in, then you can get lost and start to feel really disconnected and confused of like, okay, which way am I supposed to go?
Right. Yeah. So always coming back to presence. It seems like such an important part of it. Yeah. So I'm curious, when we get together to offer this retreat, what's the day going to feel like from your end? I know that every Awake Deep Dive has a similar feel to it. I usually start the day off with an explanation of mindfulness, and we do some practice together. And then midday, we do some walking meditation. We always get outside when the weather's nice. We
Mhm.
always include a beautiful, like, organic lunch, which is good.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, I know we always wrap up with big takeaways from the day so we can connect and really feel into it's so neat. You sit in a circle at the end of the day and everyone talks about their favorite takeaway, the most juicy bit. And then if you have 20 people there, you have 20 juicy bits that we can all take home and work on and remember. So I'm just reflecting on those are kind of the main parts of the container. And then every month we bring in someone like you, Taylor, to bring your magic into the space. So what will your part feel like at the deep dive?
Yes. I just have to say, in all of the work that I've done, I work with a lot of people online as well. And there is just such a magic when you meet in person. That is just when you create that sacred container with the people that you're in, there's true transformation that happens. Not that it can't happen online, but that's what I'm most excited about is being in the flesh with people. And so I just want to make sure that you're still there,
still
right?
good. Yep. I just put you on your own there for a minute.
Okay. I love it. I love it. So being in the flesh with people is so just transformational in itself. Second of all, Eric's talked about this physical space that we'll be in, but I will say as a nature connected coach, I have scoured so many different locations to find something that is really close to Denver and then also has really a feel for really amazing nature connection. And this space is beautiful. It is so beautiful and profound. It has a little stream that runs through it. It's got a nice grassy area that we can be in. It's got some wooded area as well. So I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself, but in the day during the mindfulness connection, right, we'll be able to drop in. I call it's like drop into yourself. And if you're not really familiar with meditating or mindfulness, like, please don't let that scare you as well, because all of the work that I'm sure, Erik, you do as well, and I do, is really meant for any level to just help meet you where you are. So you don't have to know a certain amount of anything around meditating or mindfulness or even yoga. So felt important to say that, but we'll drop in so that we can just kind of quiet the noise externally and be with ourselves and our community through a guided meditation, and to help just open up that pathway of listening inside of ourselves. And then also a yoga flow. So like we said, moving your body. I love to do, I call it just chill yoga. Like, we're not doing hot Bikram yoga, anything like that. It's really meant to just, it's more of a moving meditation, kind of probably similar to the walking meditation. So bringing in some movement because it's important to move your body. And then my favorite part is we'll do some work and wandering in nature and connecting to nature to really help you figure out your own answers and how things will come to you. So in the work that I do, I always say that I partner 50-50 with nature. And it's so interesting because in this day and age, we all want to know, like, what exactly is it going to look like? What is it going to be? But the beauty of partnering with nature is every single person has a different experience every single time. And it's meant to be that way. Just to what you were mentioning earlier, Erik, like, we don't have all of the answers, but we're going into this day with some questions, probably, the title talking about big visions. What do you have that is kind of, or maybe even a crossroads? Are there some things in your career that are coming up of, I'm not sure if I should start a side hustle or if I should start a new business, or if I want to do this business idea, or I'm trying to do a whole life transition, maybe in a relationship, or whatever that could be. Just something that's feeling like there's something out there that's trying to catch your attention. And you're like, this sounds really exciting. It sounds great to me, but how? How can I bring this into the tangible? So that's one of my favorite parts. And we'll figure out the how partnering through nature. And I guarantee you, you will find some of your answers and some clarity and some wisdom, because I know it will happen. I just know. So yes, and partnering with beautiful people and figuring out kind of their insights as well, and gaining experience and such precious energy exchange from them, and then nourishing our bodies with the amazing food. Like, the day can't get here soon enough.
I love that word, nourishment, lately. That's been a good one. Yes, in these crazy times, we have to nourish ourselves more than ever.
Yes.
So I'm also a therapist. That's what I do when I'm not running these beautiful retreats. And I have a fair amount of clients that are coming to endings. It's either with the end of a relationship, or the end of career, or even some empty nesters, that are in that transition phase. And what advice, or how do you help people to do what's next, to figure out what's next? And I heard some research, not everyone is going to get this calling that they have this deep purpose. I heard it, it was actually a TED Talk about it. It's like only 30% of us are gifted with, like, this is your calling, this is what you need to do. And the TED Talk was about how some people feel really frustrated that, or like they're missing the boat, that they don't get that clear message. What's it more really about to figure out what's next for the next chapter, do you think?
Yeah, I feel like I saw that as well. And I did a blog post about a year ago on why finding your purpose is BS.
Right. Thank you. It feels
Yeah,
like pressure, right?
it's so much pressure, and probably similar to you, the people that we see and work with. If you don't find that one purpose, then it can just be really stress inducing. I think unnecessarily so, and especially during big life transitions and endings. And I always like to step into really intention setting. So when you're going through a life transition, you're going really into an unknown of not knowing what's ahead. And our brains don't really like the unknown. It's really, ancestrally unsafe if we don't know what's ahead of us. So just knowing that can really help too. But when you're going into this transition, is really having space to carve out quiet, carve out time for yourself, and start to daydream about. I love this question, and this will probably be one we'll bring in as well, but into the deep dive day. But how do I want to be during this new phase of my life? And we get so hyper focused on what do I need to do, which is very important. But sometimes we skip to the what do I need to do without understanding how do I want to be. So if you are an empty nester now, and transitioning out of having kids all the time, in the home, how do I want to be as this empty nester? And then from there, you can start to figure out, okay, how does this version of me act throughout the day? What are the habits that I have? What are the beliefs that I have? And you can start to figure out the how from there. But that's the pivotal question, I think, is to ask how you want to be at this stage or this crossroads of your life.
Love it. Love it. So whenever we're looking at what's next for us, what I'm hearing is we want to ask ourselves, how do I want to be? Not necessarily what do I want to do? And that resonates for me. And I hopefully everyone listening, that first, what we really care about in life is feeling good, and how we want to show up and feel in life. Right. Yeah. And then the doing part seems to follow.
Exactly. And I think sometimes you'll be surprised by what you figure out, right? Like for me, for example, if I'm not looking at how do I want to be as a business owner, I get hyper focused on money. I need to make a certain amount of salary. And a lot of people do, because that's our livelihood, right? But when you start, you'll realize very quickly, when you start to follow the thing that you think you need to be doing instead of how you want to be, you'll start to find a disconnect of like, oh, this actually isn't really driving me, or this doesn't really feel good. So that's an important point as well. And also I think it's so important too, to just remain open as much as you can, and not, there's so much fluidity in our life and things that happen. And I think there's so much pressure to have the perfect answer and find like, okay, I need to figure out how to transition and be amazing at it right away, when that also is BS.
And then you don't do anything. That could
Yes.
be a real stop when you think you have to have all the pieces put together and know exactly where you're headed. I think the deepest experience for me, I've said it a couple times, but I think it bears repetition, is always coming home to our center and to source. And then it feels like we always know what to do next. Always know what to do next. Like the doing comes from a place of being.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if we try to forecast exactly how the new career or the new lifestyle has to look, it just stops us, really, right?
Yes, you're
But also
exactly.
we want to we do want to give our minds a clear vision of what we're trying to achieve too. So I guess it is a catch-22 a little
Mhm,
bit.
mhm. Yeah, so that's like the breaking it down, right? Um, it's reminding me of one of the best pieces of advice that one of my favorite mentors gave me was, um, when I was going into the work that I was doing. I knew I had this big vision and I knew that I wanted to do it, but I had no idea what it was going to look like. And he just said, "Don't worry about how, like, figure it out." Which is it's so counter, intuitive, right? Of like, well, what do you mean? Like, how do I do that? But you do have to, I mean, you do have to bring in your humanness, right? It's good to be connected to source and that spiritual aspect of soul or whatever you call it. And then also pairing in the humanness of like, okay, so what's the next action? Because it's not just going to pop up for us. We have to bring in intentional action with that.
Cool. We're getting some comments, people checking in. I'm so happy to be here live with you. And if you're just tuning in, a couple Sundays from now, May 15th, Taylor Short and I are offering a deep dive retreat through Awake up here in beautiful Evergreen, Colorado. And the title is Returning to Nature to Bring Your Big Vision into Tangible Reality. Yeah. So I wonder, so I know in my own experience, I didn't know that necessarily I was going to become a therapist. And I just started intending many years ago. I guess I had a broad vision or a life purpose. So I wonder what you think of life purpose, but mine was, I just want to reduce the confusion and any suffering in myself and others. And I want to help myself and all beings uncover like the true peace within, the clarity, our truth. And I just kept repeating that to myself for probably 20 years now. And it seems like therapy wasn't something I needed to really think too much about what I would do next. I actually used to own a DJ business. But the therapy just kind of came out of the space of my intention. So I wonder, what do you think about helping people define an intention for their life or their vision?
Yeah. Yeah. I love kind of that idea of saying like vision versus purpose, because I feel like, you know what I mean? When we think we have to have a purpose, like we talked about this just briefly in the beginning, but it can be, like, this is what I go back to is, say you were aligned with, okay, this is my purpose, is to really help others, reconnect to themselves and myself as well. I'm totally paraphrasing that, but that's kind of what I heard. So say something happened and you couldn't, forbid, you couldn't work anymore or do something like that. And you're kind of have that identity. It can be really, unsettling for you. And I'll give you kind of my example of this, in my own experience as well. Is I did years of work trying to find my purpose, because I believed that we all have one. I still do, by the way, but I'll get there. And I did so much soul work, and I heard multiple times, heard from source, I call it my soul, heard, you're here to reconnect people to our planet, to nature. And so I'm like, perfect. I have guidance. Now I can go and figure out how I do this. And about 2 years into the work, I started to feel really disconnected from this. I wasn't lit up by it. It was feeling really hard. I was really frustrated. It caused a lot of rift with me and my trust with my own soul and the intuition that I was receiving. And then I started hearing, like, I would ask, is this my purpose? And then it started to shift. No, your purpose is simply to just be. And this is when I was partnering with nature and kind of having communication, with myself in nature. And so then I was like, are you kidding me? I've created this entire business and life around this thing. And now you're saying my purpose is to just be a human being and experience life. So I have no idea what your original question is, but I think that,
Well, I think we're finally, connecting fully here and getting to the juice, because I'm getting lit up now about this conversation. But what I think I'm hearing is you went to the still quiet place within, as Christians would say that, right? So there's the still quiet place within. And the first message you kind of got was, I'm here to reconnect people to the earth. Did I get that part right?
Yeah. Clear as day.
Yeah.
And that made me so excited, because I knew how to do that.
And then you got after that. And I wonder if some of your doing got into it, of doing that purpose. And after a couple of years, you got a message that said, just be. And when you said that, that blew my mind, because anytime I can calm my mind enough and just get present and quiet, and I ask Source, hey, what do you want for me next? Yeah. And usually I'm at a place of like, what do you want for me next? Because I'm like, doing busy like a crazy man. And when I finally calm down, it's always the same message. And I don't know if I hear it even with words. It's just like, calm down, my son. I get that. It's kind of trippy. It's like, just take it easy. You don't have to do anything. And in this culture of doing and busyness, it's hard to believe, but I swear I've never gotten any other message actually from Source than just like relax and take it easy. So it just reminds me when we have this title of bringing your vision into reality, there's like a catch-22 here for me that it definitely can't. It's ironic. It's not going to come from a place of Western doing. If it's going to be authentic, it's going to come from a place of presence, because whenever we have our retreats, it's a full day of, doing stuff. You could say we meditate, we do yoga, we have lunch, we learn from people like you. But there's such a feeling of leaving the doing of our busy worlds outside the door. And we just spend a day being.
Yes.
It's magic. It's hard to talk about almost how it works, isn't it?
It totally is. That's why it's like, oh my gosh, I call it magical when we get to be in that space, because it really does shift a lot. And I think it's not to say that we can't have visions, we can't have passions, we can't have, work that we feel like we're meant to do here. After my discovery, I really believe that probably the majority of our purposes is to be human and to experience what being human is on this life plane. And it can be as simple as that. And then, and that can feel unsettling for a lot of people. I know for me, it was like, well, then what do I do during the day?
You do the next thing that you feel called to do from a place of presence.
Yes.
It's so simple. It's elusive.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
It's like we check in with Source. We set the framework for our big vision and of our life, and then we kind of relax, and the next step is revealed. And I noticed this is the coolest part, I think. So once, if what we're working on here is bringing our big vision into tangible reality, I used to try to force it for sure. And I used to definitely have impatience around it. Like I used to run Yoga Rocks the Park, and I needed a certain amount of people to be there for sure. And I would push for that. And then it was so ironic when I'd finally relax, the right people would come to teach the class, and it just would work so much better. I'm starting to think we're our own worst enemies when it comes to when we over effort. Yes.
And that's a lot of, the work that I do in people in business too. Is like, I call it the too much. Like we are doing too much. So we've kind of swung the pendulum too far. So it's not about adding more onto our plate. It's more about what can we take off of our plates here.
So totally ironic.
Yeah. It's like working smarter, not harder. Right.
Yeah. So we can enjoy our lives and be with our family and friends and have a rich life. It's so confusing what's been taught to us in the West versus what actually works and feels good.
Yeah.
And this is what we're teaching. This is why we do this, isn't it?
Yes.
There's another way to do this than we've been taught in the West.
Absolutely. And it can
be filled with ease and flow and abundance.
Yes. and it can be successful too. I think, at least in
Yes.
my doing mind, I always think rest and space equals lazy, equals non-producing, right? That's kind of what we've been accustomed to. And I could not have found more opposite to be true. You're exactly right. But it's then doing this dance with our own selves of really having internal boundaries, of being able to have boundaries with ourselves around not noticing, first of all, when you're getting hooked again, and then how do you continue to show up for yourself so that you have that not doing time.
Got it. Yeah. So as we're getting towards wrapping up here, I'm wondering, is there one thing that you could give people that are listening or watching to kind of reflect on or do, or a little practice or anything to feel into, their big vision and or anything around manifesting what's most important to them?
Yes. So you mentioned this. You said something like it's so simple that it's kind of, I don't know if you said maddening, but that's kind of what I feel. It's like it's simple. And I'm the biggest believer, and because I've experienced it myself and seen it in my clients, that the true answers and meanings and everything is in the simplicity. Like there's nothing out there. There's not the get rich quick pill. There's not the, change your life thing. It's really about coming back to simplicity. And so what I'm going to share with you is going to sound like it's so simple. I would never, there's a lot of times we bypass things when it seems too easy. But one of my most profound practices in not only connecting to myself, but also carving out that space that we've talked about is this practice that we use in nature connection called finding a sit spot. And so this is a place in nature that is the first and really only, there's a few rules around this, but the first rule about this is it has to be convenient. So you're finding a place in nature, likely going to be near your home. So if you have a backyard, if you're in a high-rise apartment or something, it can be by a window, it can be on a balcony. We always want to say, oh, I know this place that I love being connected to nature, but it's 25 miles away and you have to drive there. So you want to find convenience is number one.
Okay.
And you are going to start off by literally just sitting without a phone, without any type of technology, outside and observing for 5 minutes a day. And this has been the most profound practice that I've used in all of my mindfulness tools and techniques. And at first, you'll just notice okay, my mind's really busy. You're not really even noticing your, I just can see that. Cool. I just could see the comment there. So that distracting. I'm human. But you'll start to notice when you first start sitting there, as you're getting pulled to, your brain's getting pulled to all the things you should be doing inside. And then you'll start to notice, oh, this same bird I've seen over the last couple of weeks. And you'll start to notice, oh, how is nature shifting with the weather patterns change? And I really encourage you to play with it and try going out there at night. Try going out there if it's raining. Just try being with the weather, because nature has so much to teach us about life. And how do you react to not perfect 70-degree weather, and how does nature react to that as well? And then if you want, you can start to just ask that question or those questions that you want answers to in that space of openness of what is my next step? And just be open to the synchronicities, to the symbolism that you see in nature. I always am a super strong believer in animal and plant spirits. So if you start to see oh, there's a ton of dandelions up here, I wonder what that has to teach me and what that symbolism means. Or if you have, I'm just going to make sure I've got this turned off. Or if you have, you ask a question and a hawk flies by or something like that, so just notice what's happening. But this is a practice of inviting in me not telling you exactly what to do or exactly what you're going to experience, but trusting that you will experience exactly what you need to.
So that's the practice. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Is there a name for that practice?
Yeah. So I call it the sit spot. So SIT, like you're sitting your booty on an earth, and it's your spot, and you will grow such an affinity for this area that you're in. It'll be like your new family. It's really, really cool, and so profound.
I love it. So just to review, this is a little practice that people can try. And we always try to give actionable things that people can use. So this is perfect. So it's about finding a sit spot, and it must be a convenient location. We all have our beautiful fantasy locations, but it needs to be somewhere you can get to easily so it can be consistent. And you're saying bring no technology, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a timer or something to know what 5 minutes is, or do you just kind of feel into it?
Yeah, I mean, I notice, just play with it, but I notice, obviously, if you have busy days, do what you need to do. But I notice a significant difference, even if I want to like bring my phone to get an Instagram photo, or like I can feel the pull. There's a difference. So play with it.
Don't bring it. Okay.
Really don't.
Okay, so like at least 5 minutes a day. And then what we're going to do is just sit there and notice all the cycles of nature. And I was curious about that part. Are we supposed to kind of reflect and think about what we're experiencing, or does it more just being with, like?
Yeah, I like to. I'd say, again, play with it and see what comes up for you different days. But I like just being curious and personally watching how nature, like you're almost learning from nature. Like you're sitting there as a student and saying, like, I'll watch these ants and just kind of watch what they're doing. And like, oh, this is how this group of ants work together. And then I always say, what does this have to teach me about what I'm doing in my life right now with a group of other people, right? So I always pull in the symbolism, but play with it. Like that's the way it works for me, but be open to, if you want to try one day, like I want to ask a super pointed question, what happens? Or if I want to spend this as like time in prayer or whatever it is, just play with different ways that want to unfold for you.
Great. So, I mean, the final step pretty much there is ask the question, and then trust what you get.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Yeah. It really is that cool.
I love it. Well, this is going to be great then, because at our deep dive Sunday, May 15th, we have a cabin that's on a stream, as you know, you've been there. And there's plenty of places right in the nearby woods to go and get your own spot, or you could sit by the river. And we can, obviously, you'll be offering this practice, I assume. This is too good not to.
Totally.
Cool, Taylor. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to practice with you. And if you're listening or watching this, you're warmly invited to come. It's just go to awakeexperience.com to sign up for the deep dive Sunday, May 15th with Taylor Short. And we're going to teach you how to partner with nature and how to bring your big vision into tangible reality. So, anything else? Cool. Anything else to add, or does that feel complete for today?
I think it feels complete. And, just knowing like there will be people who will be watching this that won't be able to come and will miss you and we'll be holding you in spirit. But if you're interested in this, just go back to trusting yourself, and it doesn't need to be complicated, right? That's just the last thing that I would say.
I love that. Right. If you can come to these kind of offerings, that's wonderful. We all are supported by this. And the deepest truth here is you don't need to sign up for anything, really. All you always really need to do is go back to your own heart. And we truly, if we can just slow down the monkey mind and be here, we're always going to be okay. And I thank you for saying that. And if you want a little external love, you could come to the Awake Retreat too. Taylor's going to be there too. This year, the big Awake Festival actually is September 16th through 18th in Evergreen up here too. So, so you can get your external support and always go home to source.
Totally. Love it.
Cool. Well, we'll see you soon, Taylor. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks everyone that tuned in.
Bye.